Hi, Chris.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
Good, good, thanks. How about yourself?
Good. I think I opened a few pull requests over the past few weeks, but like I think it's like one of them addresses the issue of tables, so it's possible to do tables with Markdown as well. So I'm not sure if I've taken a look at those yet, but they're not urgent anyways.
I did, I'll go look at that. Um, I did see that it was possible, but it seemed like it was, I hate to say not easy, but um, it, I think Tracy did it, and when she did it, it took up more of the page
Yep.
than, and that sort of became the issue. Um, so I don't know whether we should look at a link um, that would drive us to a different page, like solely for that architecture, um, for that table.
Like a pop-up?
Yeah.
Okay, let me investigate that too. Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean,
It does, because like right now, if you use a table, it's going to be limited in terms of like the width.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's what Tracy was finding. And yeah, so I think if we could have that separate, it might be nice and make some sense there.
yeah. Okay, I'll look into it. This
Thank
week.
you so much, Chris.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, pal. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Good.
Tired a little bit, but busy time. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It seems like it, I don't know for you guys, but at the beginning of the year, things really start to, like at this time period, the ideas formulate, and then all of a sudden it's, let's get them going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even more because yesterday with my friend, we started a new podcast. And yeah, there is a lot of things to do around. So yeah, it's
Oh, nice.
yeah,
What's the
it's
podcast about?
well, first of all, it's in Polish, but we will have some episodes in English for sure when we have guests. But mainly architecture, cloud, some things related to DevOps stuff, some things related to security, like a big sack of everything. And we plan to have guests to talk about solutions, for example, from company. I will not say X. It doesn't sound good now, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to talk about the product, but also talk a little bit about the architecture used in the product. So things like that. So mainly focus to people who want to hear something about cloud architectures mainly. Right? We'll see how it will go.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm. Hello, Brian and
Hello.
Minnie, how are you?
I'm
Hi,
doing
how are
well.
you?
Good, good, thanks. Do you work with Ed?
I do.
Okay.
He's on the security side, and I'm on like the pipeline platform side. So I have the CI/CD platform, and he's the one that keep on checking on my system. So
Mhm.
All right, Brian, let's see, it's 11:33. Why don't we just give another 2 minutes here? Hey, Ed.
Hey, Kate, how are you doing?
Good, good, thanks. We're just gonna wait 2 more minutes. Some of the items that we're gonna discuss, so Brian was gonna talk about the main points on why we're doing this, and it's funny because we came across the reasons, and he had, I think, some pretty good ideas on making those points more in the forefront. So Brian will share that up.
Yep. Yeah, and I will
So.
say I'll get more into it. I know we're waiting a bit here, but just exchanged an email with you, Kate, and I left the last meeting thinking I knew exactly what updates were needed, and then when I dug in, feels like they may be a little different than I originally envisioned. So so maybe as I talk through that, we can get some guidance or ideas on where to best inject the watt.
Okay. And do you want to share it? Do you want to bring it up? It is 5 minutes into this.
Yeah.
So why don't
Go ahead,
we,
Charlie.
officially kick this off? This is March 18th, and this is the this is the CD Foundation Cybersecurity SIG Special Interest Group. And today we're going to be talking about the why. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and kick it off from here?
Yeah, why don't let me get like 2 minutes to get something copied over, and then I can start. So I want to drop this stuff in a Google Doc. And I will need to edit it momentarily. All right, when I share my screen, I am going to disappear for about 20 seconds as my audio drivers reset. So please
Okay.
give me a moment. Is that the correct one? No, yes. Testing, testing. Can you guys hear me yet?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Tracy. We are we've kicked this off. Brian is going to be jumping.
Hello?
He just has a momentary.
Testing, testing. All right, but that didn't work. I'm going to try one more time. Looks like this time, instead of just resetting my audio drivers, it reset Zoom completely. And if it doesn't work this time, Kate, I may just ask you to present, but let me give it a shot. Let's see.
I can see you're trying to start screen sharing.
Me too.
Something is going on.
All right,
That
looks like that
sucks.
is not going to work.
right.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shoot you this doc real quick.
Okay.
And maybe we can talk to this. We'll go to Ariel, we'll share.
And so one of so Tracy, 2 weeks ago, one of the questions was the whole why behind this. Why are we doing this? So just to, get you up to date. So I'm actually going to share my screen, particularly because Ed was talking about this. And one of the things that I'm going to share my screen with is the whole why. And Tracy had actually laid it out very well for us. But the idea behind it is important. Let me just minimize this. So why are we doing this, and why is this needed? And she had also created the personas behind this, Ed, which was I thought nice, because oftentimes we don't it's important, as I'm sure that that when we're standing in front of not only C-level, but those who are coding, bringing everything together on, this is why you need to know this, and this is why Group A needs to know this. but there is a reason behind it. And one of the things that Brian was talking about is it may be more important that as we go to here, that maybe on this page that we put the whole why behind this. And right, Brian?
Yeah, I think as we looked at it, I think maybe Ed was saying the same thing. We felt that I think the general sentiment was you jumped right into a lot of text in the meat without necessarily having the why framed when you got this code and build page. What I did end up looking at, however, is each of these sections is built to have an introduction, Kate. So the code and pre-build, build and deploy, and post-deploy.
Right.
So they kind of stand independent. So again, I think we actually need to put the why on this top page here. And then possibly what we were solving for in terms of having a lightweight overview at the top of the phase sections is a different thing to address.
And one of the things, yes, and one of the other things that we spoke about last week was, this is going to be your table of contents, right? The TOC on this side, and this will start to build out as we start to build this out.
Yes, so that people will see sort of the nested hierarchy and they can better navigate the information.
So does that make sense? And I'm going to grab your document now.
The doc, and all I did was make a very slight change to what Tracy originally sketched out, which I think
Okay.
was pretty strong. Anyway, I just put it in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, let me go ahead and just share my screen.
So I think there's two questions, or three maybe. We confirm if anybody says, hey, we don't need to address the why. Let's consider that. Is the why properly articulated? And then third is, where's the best place to inject it for the CX? And I'll talk a bit to this. Again, a lot of this language is language that Tracy had already generated.
Right.
But which was rising vulnerabilities, which we all know the cybersecurity landscape is getting more and more precarious. It's being and so we are seeing more vulnerabilities at more of an expense. That is being accelerated and supercharged by AI. So the threat landscape is, I'll use the word again, with I'll pause in a minute and you guys can read the direct words, but the threat landscape is getting increasingly more difficult and increasingly larger. We are seeing, as we saw with the supply chain check that was announced yesterday, that we are seeing the supply chain attacks are becoming more and more vulnerable, which then leads back to the final key thing, and it's the lack of true security integration into the CI/CD process. And I think our core tenet is to say there are more threats out there. They are increasing. And so we need to secure our supply chain, starting at the CI/CD pipeline. And this SIG is here to do that by helping drive real world best practices, tooling, and integration. Anyway, so I riffed a lot on the words, but that's the general theme. So I'll stop there and see if there's any comments on the general theme or to let people read the actual words.
So I have a question for the last one, especially because integration into CI/CD is one thing, right? But also security for the CI/CD. Do we want to address this as well or not?
We do. In fact, if you go to the document, the actual document, there is, I've added that as kind of a post code and pre-build step. I referenced in toto there, but please everybody understand that we have not begun working on this document. So there's lots of opportunities to talk about all of these pieces. So if you go to the phase 1 code and pre-build, please. Yeah, and then scroll down. So there we go, right? Whoa, 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 whoa. Go scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, right there, stop. Implementing, supporting tool chains. So remember, what the goal is not for us to sit down and write best practices. That's been done, okay? The
Yep.
reason why this particular SIG is needed is because we need to go through these existing practices that have already been out there, like the secure software development framework, secure software development framework, and identify what we need to use to achieve it. So if in the secure software development framework, it says we should secure our tool chain or the CI/CD, then we're going to do that. I right now don't feel like it would be beneficial for us to start writing new best practices because everybody's doing that and nobody's trying to make it practical. So this is a practical guide to putting security into your CI/CD framework. So for
Yeah, sure.
example, how many of you raise your hand if you've heard of bomb cuddle?
Not.
Anybody heard of bomb cuddle? This is the problem, right? The OpenSSF is building out these tools. Nobody knows about them or even how to use them. Right? So we have one side of the house in the Linux Foundation working really hard to create tools for us to use. They're all command line, by the way, and they're all written by people who are security geeks. But nobody in the DevOps world knows anything about them.
That's the problem.
And to sit here,
Because there are
yeah,
security
that's a real
geeks.
problem. Yeah, it's a real problem. And that's really the goal. But instead of saying, you know, maybe there was no reason for OpenSSF to create bomb cuddle, but if it has been created, we need to understand what it's used for and put it into how to achieve the guidelines that the OpenSSF, CISA, and NIST have already defined. So that's really, really, truly the goal of this project, is to take these frameworks and give a practical guide of how to use what tools we could use to do different things. So the answer is yes, because the secure software development framework already talked about it. And it was in PO3 implement supporting tool chains. So what I did when I first started working on this, as I've been going through that secure software development framework, I've been looking at every single task, and I'm trying to sort out if this area is something that we can add tooling to the CD pipeline to achieve the task.
It's very simply put, Tracy, when you say it. And I like, you know, and I wonder if we should take those words and, you know, and basically just, you know, put them on top. Like, this is, you know, because I know that we've talked about it before, you know, a lot, this idea that trying to make something practical. At the end of the day, that's so important.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we call it the practitioner's guide then, the DevOps practitioner's guide to security.
And I don't know, is the CI/CD Security SIG is committed to providing a practical real-world guide to implementing effective security within your application delivery pipeline. Does that
That's
capture?
beautiful. Yeah, for me, that's beautiful. You know, yeah.
It sounds smart, so it sounds good.
So I just I could throw a lot of smart buzzwords at it. So I just put that text at the bottom of the document.
Okay.
Now, that being said, I'm going to bring this up. You know, I'm on the TOC, and I'm really glad we're having this conversation, actually. I'm glad because getting everybody on the same page of what we're trying to achieve here, so that some of these really awesome open source tools can start being adopted.
Yeah.
There is a SIG at the CD Foundation called Best Practices. I would love, and the website you're looking at, I actually downloaded the Best Practices website and I copied it and I tweaked it so it was ours. It was created by a man by the name of Terry Cox. It was one of the first SIGs that they had at the CD Foundation. Tracy Miranda, Tara Hernandez was involved in it, and they did some really good work. That SIG has completely, for the most part, died. Terry Cox is kind of tired of writing all the documentation himself, because that kind of it happens with this stuff. if we want to incorporate best practices into this, there's a, we could certainly put a link to their best practices documentation up here and invite Terry to participate in this group and kind of absorb the best practices. So for those of you, and I know there are some on this call today who are specialists in best practices in CI/CD, could actually, contribute to those components as well. I don't know what's going to happen to that best practices SIG. The website is out there. Let me see if I can quickly find it. But if we feel like best practices is something that we also want to cover, and it could be, then my suggestion is we leverage the good work that's already been done out there. Let me see if I can find it really quick and I'll share it. It's on the main page of the CD Foundation, I know. Adopt best practices right there. So here is, Kate, I'm going to share this with you. If you could just share, I'm going to put it in the chat.
Sure.
There it is. If you could just show us that,
Yeah,
share that page so we can, you'll see how similar it looks and you'll go, oh, that's how she got that website up so fast. I was always a good coder because I like to copy and reuse functions. So
Hey, if it works, right?
it works,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's unfortunate, or better or worse, it's how some of our society's most impactful technology was built.
Well, it's called Copilot now.
funny.
Could we spend another minute or two riffing
Can you
on
share that?
What's that?
You're not sharing your screen?
How about now?
Nope.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can. Am I sharing my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
Okay. Okay, so this is what I took this from. And pretty much it's just a Hugo server with a Doxy document behind it. That's why it looks so much like ours. But all this work is already pretty much done, version control, continuous integration, continuous deployment. There's a lot of best practice information in here. So we could potentially help with this group if we go ahead and we would just take this website that we were at, this website, the best practices, and we would put it off of here. So we could put CI/CD best practices.
I like this idea. Mhm.
Yeah, I do too.
And I would say if we were going to do that, if there's anybody who wants to take over as a chairperson or a co-chairperson with Terry Cox of the best practices, that would be willing to work on both of these areas, that might be helpful. And we could literally just create one SIG, CI/CD cybersecurity and best practices, so that the best practice conversation could continue on. And if you want to update the best practices, you can, or if you want to update the cybersecurity information, you can. So you see where I'm trying to salvage the best practices document because it's not really being worked on. If you go to the CD Foundation, it's right here, adopt best practices. I want to get adopt security as well when we get ours farther along. But I hate to see this particular SIG go away, and I know some of you are experts in this area. So just a thought, I don't want to take away from the important work that we're doing, but at the same time, I don't want to belittle the importance of best practices in the conversation. And if you guys want me to put a link out there to the best practices for now, I will totally do that. And if you want to think of it on your own, reach out to me. I'll send you an email so I can connect you with Terry Cox to.
I can think about this
Oh,
because
cool.
it sounds like
You and Garima would be a perfect people to take over that SIG, to be quite honest. I know Garima's always busy, but you guys got a new book out there, which I think is fabulous, by the way. I've read it.
Thank
Awesome
you.
job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so some of those concepts are not in this best practices. And it would be great to get some of those concepts in here, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of work to do in this area. This is probably the area that is least understood by our DevOps brethren.
Definitely. I can confirm.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering if I want to volunteer for like the best practices sake. Would it be okay for me to send you an email as well?
Yes, please just shoot me the emails over if you're interested in participating in that SIG.
Okay.
And we don't have to have the permission of the best practices group to add the link here. So I'm going to add a link on ours to that. And I might go ahead and create a pull request to add a link to ours from theirs, but not yet because we have too much work to do before we make this public, right? It would be an embarrassment if we did it now because it's got a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, I just started with code and pre-build. We got some stuff in here from build and deploy, but it doesn't have the mapping to the secure software development framework or the NIST cybersecurity framework. It doesn't have either one. So this needs to be worked out, and we haven't done anything really around post-deploy. I've just gotten some general ideas of what needs to be done. So those are my thoughts. And Brian,
Hey,
did you just write that and you want to email that to me and I'm happy to add it to the front of this?
Yeah, I can add it. However,
Okay,
I,
why don't
I
we just
actually,
put why? We
Oops,
just put
sorry.
up here why this group, as a title in this little white
Where?
space,
Let me
why this
see
group?
where. Okay, right. Now, how about what's your thought then, Tracy? I think the team last week when we reviewed it, we felt there was some context setting needed inside the body of the content as well. I can
Believe me,
absolutely go at what. Go ahead, yeah.
please take it over, write it. If you feel it needs to be there, this is an open source community. This is not my document. I tried to
Yeah.
build a good structure so we could all get started, but please start writing. If you feel like more needs to be here, please contribute to
Yeah,
it.
so
It's
I'll
ready to
look to.
go.
So if we agree on the actual verbiage or the general verbiage, then I can go ahead and issue a PR.
And there's got to be reviewers on it. So we're set up. And actually, we were going to make a handful of folks a reviewer, and we just made everybody a reviewer. I felt it was just easier that way for me
Yeah.
to manage it. So go ahead and start contributing, and let's start, reviewing each
So
other's
yeah, so I
work
already
and
have a
approving or
PR. So I
not.
went to make an update with slightly different text. There's a PR out there that's blocked on a review. I
Okay.
just closed it though. So we can ignore that, and yeah, I will issue another PR later to make the updates. It sounded like, Ed, you were saying maybe you wanted to revisit the actual language, the actual why.
I think it'd be worth spending a few minutes on this call iterating over the purpose of the group. So Tracy outlined it pretty well. I wonder, could we capture that in a sentence or two? I think you had proposed a sentence or two, and so maybe we write that down and even on screen live now and iterate on it. And I think the question I'd have is the purpose of the group to provide a practical implementation guide, which implies that we'd be doing the best practices work, or that we'd be giving technical kind of guidance to developers on tools? Or is it to enable developers, C-suite folks, to make decisions on what tools would align or enable them to meet certain standards? So those are two different things.
I want to reframe that discussion because we're not really reaching out to developers. We are reaching out to DevOps engineers who may be developers, but I just want to make sure it's clear who our audience is.
Brilliant.
Our audience is the DevOps team.
Mm-hmm.
And it is to provide them the ability to meet the guidelines that have been defined by the most popular policies that are already out there, like the Secure Software Development Framework. How do you meet those guidelines?
Mm-hmm.
without budget authority, okay?
Yeah.
With no budget authority, how do you go out here and do you have to go through, you know, if you think about what that looks like, let's just go up here. Here's the framework. I've started on it. It's a lot. There's a lot and there's tons of stuff. We want to do this hard work for a DevOps engineer and say, okay, we've gone through here and I wanted you to, and I'd love to be able to make these calls a working session. So every single person on this call becomes an expert in the SSDF. We go through each one of these and make a decision does any of this relate to or should this be achieved through the DevOps pipeline? Should this one be achieved by the DevOps pipeline? What tools would achieve that? And we need to be able to cross-check each other's work because I might have put a tool in one of these tasks that will not achieve that goal. This is hard. This is hard to find. It's hard to understand. I promise you, these kind of high-level, very non-specific tasks into exactly what you need to do to your DevOps pipeline is not an easy process. So we want to provide that service to the DevOps engineers who are being asked to do more around security. And even if they're not being asked to do more around security, we want them to do more around security.
Yeah.
We're in a situation now, especially in the United States, that we have a government that's really ripping apart. You know, if there's few people left in CISA, hardly anybody left in NIST. So they've already done this good work. Let's figure out how to implement it. And so that's why I just want to reiterate, we really are, we're not shifting left. We're staying in the middle where DevOps, where the heart of development happens, and we're putting the tools in that need to go there.
So are we telling them, the DevOps engineer, what tool to use and how to use the tool, or both what and how, or just what?
We are telling the DevOps engineer that in our opinion, when we go through here, you go to the code and pre-build stage. Here is the secure software development framework. Here is the ones that I have picked out that said, hey, you can achieve this if you work with the in-toto framework. Okay. Here is this one, store all forms of code. Well, that was easy. GitHub and SourceForge were the two of the free ones you could use. And don't believe that everybody knows this because there are people who don't. Acquire and maintain well-secured software. Well, what are the tools that we could use to do that? That's kind of like, you know, SCA work and SBOM work. So I added Cyclone DX, SPDX. I added all of these, you know, but I believe me, this is not accurate. Okay. This is bullshit that I've written. Okay. Because I was trying to get a framework down for you guys to have a discussion of how you want to present the information. So consider all of this bullshit. We need to go through each section together and make a decision as a team for each one of these areas. And then add it to the doc because there are many areas that have nothing to do with the pipeline. Many. Now I've spoken to a lot of people who have played with, so I've spoken to a lot of people who have played with this and they're trying to map, like there's one woman who's taken the tasks for this secure software development framework and the task for, what's it called? The NIST Cybersecurity Framework version 2.0, and she's tried to map them both, but she's not listed the tools that you need to achieve them. And I think somebody on one of these calls, they said we need to do that, and we need to take the tools and say if you're using these tools, you've achieved the NIST framework and you've achieved the software development framework in these task numbers. This is that we're facing, the difficulty of this, and that's what we need to achieve. That's why I want to stay away too much from best practices and just make this a practical guide to achieving what's already been defined. And I wish I'll have to find, I thought I sent an email maybe, or I put it in the Slack channel, the document that the other person, I was hoping she'd join us today. what the work she did that maps the SIST to the secure software development framework. That's a really important part of it, because then they know that they're achieving both of those guidelines.
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea to start
We
with
couldn't
this.
access a Slack channel, right? Because within our work, like even Google Doc, we cannot access Google Doc. We cannot access Slack.
You can't access the Slack channel?
It's blocked from our work location.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll make sure and try to share information on an email or something.
That
That's a
might
better
work
way to
better.
communicate.
And you probably
Okay.
know better how we can get around those, because we cannot access Google Doc either. Then our open
Well,
source.
what I'll do is
pretty
I'll
tough.
just start, I'll update the GitHub README so that you can find new
Yeah.
information in there.
That works.
And I will update the GitHub when I README when I find that document that maps NIST to the secure software development for it's basically NIST to CISA.
So,
So
I think we should start with what we got, right? Um, I really like what you're saying, Tracy. Like, let's just start building this out together. The other thing is, I think Minnie's question about like how to do it is a valid one. I would very much like to offer up Red Hat's Conflux open source project, which is um it is an implementation of all this in Tecton as one option, right? We could link to it. That's a public open source project saying here's how you
That'd
would
be
use
great.
these tools in an exemplary CI/CD pipeline that does in toto attestations and everything, right? As yeah, but like a reference implementation, right?
Maybe we should have a section in here and call it use cases.
Yeah.
We could have under use cases Red Hat Tecton and anybody else who's got use cases that are built on open source that could be implemented.
Yeah.
That would be so helpful. It really would, to see how other people are doing, trying to get this done. I've reached out to some of the folks in the Jenkins community, and I think they're the farthest behind.
Yeah, and they're implementing conflicts for Jenkins also.
And Marie, you're saying they're implementing conflicts, you said.
Yeah, I'll paste the link.
Is the person's name Karen Scarfone?
That doesn't sound familiar. I just spoke to her too. I've just been talking to so many people recently. Brian Fox gave me her info when I was at the policy summit. Which, by the way, I could tell you right now, the people on the policy side, they don't even think for a minute, not even a second, about what it takes to actually implement this
Right.
work. And they don't think either and when they do think about implementing it, they think about monolith. One big fat binary, not a decoupled architecture, right? They didn't even realize that in a monolithic architecture, it's easy to generate one SBOM, but in a decoupled architecture, every container has its own SBOM. And most people don't have a good way of aggregating one big, you can look at the Helm chart and then try to figure out what SBOMs might have been generated in the Helm chart to create that big SBOM. And everybody's trying to solve some of those problems. So one of those are some of the things we should be talking about.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me go look at my emails and see if I can find this
And
woman's
if I could just,
document.
real quick, when you're working with auditors and they're, looking at, what and where this aligns, as long as you are providing the supporting documentation, then that's a good thing. It helps them and helps your group. And that's something that we can drive this conversation that will make it easier for everybody.
That is what I want to make. I just want to make it easier for everybody. Not everybody should have to go through this process. There should be a reference guide for it. And that's how I decided, and I'm on the, I listen to what's going on on the OpenSSF side. And they're super excited about building these tools, but nobody's adopting them. Nobody
Yeah.
knows where they should put them in the pipeline, unless you're somebody like Red Hat who's got a team that's really focused and working on it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know he sent me that stuff.
So Ed, any thoughts? Oh,
Yeah, I'm sketching. I'm trying to capture what Tracy's saying and what Brian is saying, and consolidate it down into a kind of single, clear sentence or three to capture the purpose of the goal of this group, essentially. So I think Brian has done a really good job at outlining the why and the mission. Like, it's really important that we're secure. The threat landscape is changing. But and how we as a group go about helping people solve that is, like, the purpose of this group is we should all be able to rattle that off, and we should all have the same sentence or two when asked.
right,
So I propose something there. I don't know how far off the mark it is, but it's my attempt to
in the chat,
capture
yeah.
that.
Wouldn't that be amazing if we could be, provide that kind of leadership and thought, help? Say, yeah, I know that task and this is how you solve it. Because there aren't that, I think when we get through it, I don't believe that there's going to be hundreds of tasks that are in the CI/CD pipeline. I think there's going to be a handful of really important ones that we should be dealing with. God, I swear I thought don't you hate that when I'm just looking for a link, basically, a link to a spreadsheet that was shared with me.
And I do like, Ed, what you put there in the chat. It's very simple.
The follow-on questions would be, okay, we're clear it's DevOps engineers, that's our primary focus. It's to secure their CI/CD pipelines. Is it exclusively focused on NIST, or do we want to enable them to be compliant with a broader set of industry standards?
I think we can consider any of the industry standards we want to take on. I just started with the secure software development framework because it's the most practical. I've read most of them. I think that in the original, if you go to the original README in GitHub, it'll list the ones that I had originally had said these are the ones that we should take on.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they
I think
are
so. I think
they are
that
IBM's X-Force Threat Landscape Report, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, Securing the AI Software Supply Chain, and the Secure Software Development Framework. So I listed 4 that are out there that contain information about guidelines.
Okay, so maybe we reword the purpose to say to be compliant with industry best practices, including the following 4 in parentheses or something, just to give folks a sense of it.
Yeah, and I would say also best practices and policies, because I think a lot of these are I would consider them more policies.
Okay, yeah.
So that's why it's hard to map them, because you have to interpret what the policy's saying.
Yeah. With industry policies or like what?
Yeah, we call them,
mean-
what do we call these? And I would say industry security frameworks. Because that's what they're calling them.
Yeah. Okay. By providing, and we do that by, what is it we do? I think we chatted about providing an inventory of the tools. So Tracy, you're talking about people don't even know that these options exist for them. So
yeah.
But is that our?
Yeah, is it simply to inventory the tools and list them, or
not just to list them, just say, here's a bunch of tools, but to identify which tools would meet the task.
And to map,
Okay.
map it back.
Map the
Okay, so it's the
tasks.
mapping,
Yeah.
not any additional tooling. We're not telling them how to implement the tools, and we're not providing them binaries or packages to implement the tools or practices. Is
No,
that
this will
correct?
be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, way too much. Yeah, we're not doing that.
So it's more than just providing an inventory. It's an inventory mapped back to the frameworks. And the reason we're doing that is, I think, so that we can enable them, enable them to make decisions that are appropriate for their organizations. So that
Correct.
they can look at whatever it is we produce, and they can see 2 or 3 tools. They might have been aware of 2 beforehand, but now they're aware of a 3rd, and they can see the capabilities of that tool mapped to the policy and make a decision based on that.
And I want to emphasize that the tools are going to be open source tools, because we're going to assume that the person reading it doesn't have budget authority and is not going through a whole process of trying to look at commercial tools. This is for open source tools. Now, there may be a time in the future, if this document was popular, we don't know if this document is going to get the eyes or not. But potentially, if it did get the eyes, we could help the CD Foundation bring in a little more funds by adding some sponsor pages and letting sponsors add to the document. But that's something that the governing board of the CD Foundation would have to make a decision on. And then they would have to embrace that and move it forward. But for now, I want to keep it just open source tooling that's coming out of Apache or the OpenSSF or anywhere else for that matter. I would prefer them to have a governing, sometimes these open source tools are maintained by a company like DeployHub, but they haven't been willing to turn it over to a foundation that has a governance around it. And I think it's important for these tools to have a governance around it. I do believe in the governance of open source, because it clarifies who the owner is, and it's not owned by a particular, the IP, even though it's open source, is still owned by a private company. It's kind of the Terraform problem, right?
Oh yeah.
So I just want to emphasize that part of it.
Are we looking to provide also like a reverse, I would say reverse lookups, like, okay, if I select this tool and this tool will map this list of SSF, that would be nice after we did the first one.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's what I was saying, that if you look at that's what I'm looking for, that spreadsheet, because we already had a person go through every single task in the Secure Software Development Framework and every single task in the NIST one, and she mapped them to them being similar tasks. And what she didn't have was how to implement it, because she's not, that's not what she does.
Nope. To ask a devil's advocate question here, as we look at, because I like where you're going, Ed, with this, but I do see things like this last, as Anne Marie typed, let me find it. Providing an inventory of open source tools and their capabilities mapped to the SSDF requirements. That prompts me to ask, how aware is your average DevOps engineer of the SSDF requirements? And I'd say in my day-to-day experience, most DevOps engineers I come across are not actively following NIST guidelines and NIST practices.
So yeah, no, great call out. I think that's probably one of the reasons that it's a good idea to raise around and chat about it. I think it's broader than SSDF, as far as I understand. I think it's more to be compliant with industry frameworks, and Tracy had a list of them. So I think it's more how aware of them are DevOps engineers, not
Like,
sure.
are
I
you going to
kind of-
entice the DevOps in, like someone sitting, like meeting them where they're at? Are they sitting there going, "Gosh, I really wish I understood how to implement the SSDF framework, fill-in
Probably not.
framework there"? Right? You're
Yeah.
not necessarily compelling them if you're saying our role is to provide an inventory of tools to implement a framework that you don't know or potentially even care about. So it's something to consider. Right?
Great call out. So I suppose there's two things. One is to enable them to secure their CIDC pipeline. I think they'll care about that, maybe.
Right.
Secondly, there's kind of an implicit assumption amongst this group about if they're compliant with those security frameworks, that'll be secure. But maybe there's a better way of calling that out. Actually, would
Yeah,
you
I
have
think it may be. I
best-
mean, there may be certain practitioners in certain industries and verticals that are. I mean, we know there are that are heavily focused on being compliant and following frameworks. I think a simple thing may be is um, the two is simply the outcome that we're looking at is securing your CI/CD pipelines, right? And the frameworks are less of a goal, but they're an ends to the means. So what I'd say is move to be compliant with industry should by um, uh, supporting compliance with industry security frameworks. But and I'm jumping around clumsily, but my short suggestion is maybe we just put frameworks, we move frameworks to the how instead of the outcome. Because most DevOps engineers, their goal is not going to be to align with a framework. It is going to be to secure their CI/CD pipelines.
I hear you, and I think so. What you're proposing is enable DevOps engineers to secure their CI/CD pipelines by providing an inventive open source tool mapped to
That
capability.
enables them to right. Yeah,
Cool.
sorry.
Yeah, I
To
keep going.
industry, to industry frameworks, standards and frameworks.
There we go. Yep.
And I do
Yeah,
think
and
it's
we'll
important
keep
to
it
keep
open.
the industry
that?
security part of it. Because, you know, when you're working in critical infrastructure, you know, IEC and NERC and all that becomes important part of the industry security framework.
Awesome. And I don't know, am I wrong, Kate? Obviously, you have a different perspective, but I believe that the average enterprise DevOps engineer or platform engineer is underinformed about on the frameworks out there. Myself. So anyway, the other thing I would throw on is as we go through this, there may be a bit of cross-referencing or education around the frameworks that they're inventorying tools against that we should consider.
And I'll say that, you know, NIST was always like, and let's just take IEC or NERC. There's a lot of cross mapping that I think once we get this going, it will be simple to say, and, you know, NERC, yada, yada.
Right.
In some of the critical infrastructure, I have found that the DevOps folks are becoming extremely aware of why secure coding is important. And I can't speak from an enterprise perspective, but more from an industry.
Right. Well, that is good news.
I think most of what we see has been outside of the CI/CD pipeline. A lot of it's being built into GitHub Actions. Things that are happening at the point in time you do it, you check something in, which is, and then stuff is initiated, but then Jenkins gets executed later. So there's work being done at the repo level, but not necessarily higher up in the chain. The focus is oftentimes right there at in GitHub Actions, at least for the Jenkins community.
Yeah.
Maybe is it also a goal to reduce like the toil involved in keeping up with security by automating more of it?
I
Yeah,
think so.
it's,
I mean, I think if
There's
we
not
talk
gonna
about
s-
why does it not happen a lot, because it's a lot of hard work that's not necessarily attached to your core mandate. So if we make it easier, it'll happen more.
yeah, and even if you're given the time to do it, it takes a lot of time to update every single freaking workflow for Jenkins. I'm sorry, it's hard.
True.
It's not easy. You got to go update them one at a time. So then if we're good with the why, because we're going to get close to the hour here and I want to respect everybody's time. Are we all okay with the next call that we start making them working sessions and we continue on working on, let's just start with a software development framework and we can start going through the stuff that I've worked on and figure out how much BS is in there. Because literally I was not being very careful. Let's just put it that way. I was hoping that people would say, no, we got to read this and this isn't right. So let's just start with where we're, at the top. And in the meantime, I will get that mapping that was done, I think by somebody, I think she was a PhD at the University of, I think maybe North Carolina. And I'll get that so we can at least reference it. I don't think we have to worry about it right now, but it would be good to add it to the documentation. So that we can say, here's a mapping if you'd like to map the, one framework to another. But are we all okay with the idea of making this a working session to make progress on the document itself?
Yes, for me.
Yep.
So that being said, does everybody know where to get the Secure Software Development Framework document? It's in the top of that, just go ahead and put it in there it is, so grab it. And, you might, I've started working on it and making little notes and whatnot, but let's do the first section, which would be, that's the first section of it. The first section is going to be PO, I think. And that is prepare the organization. So this is where like the in toto framework might go. What's some of the basic stuff that we have to do? So let's for in 2 weeks, let's be prepared to go through at least the PO section of it. And if you want to get started and you want to update the doc, go for it. Just say I'm already going to work on this, and then we'll have something just to review. So if you want to start at the top and say and take a stab at it, don't be afraid. Just put it out there. I'm sure your more detailed and more careful analysis will be better than what I have out there. Believe me.
you
Sometimes
say-
getting started is the hardest part. So credit
Yeah,
to
when
you.
you say update the doc, are you saying like Google Doc, or you mean like put up a PR?
The Hugo doc, yes.
Which one?
And if we need the actual document, the doc that's the Hugo doc, the Doxy doc, this doc. Let's see. And maybe I need to go through a session and have so everybody can get used to using a Hugo server. I could certainly go through that next time.
Yeah. So you mean in the GitHub repo?
Correct.
Yeah. I think we should just give each other a heads up. We could either do it in Slack or by opening a GitHub issue that says, "Hey, I'm working on this section," right? I just don't want to trip over each other.
Do we have anything like Jira we can use for the management so we don't like duplicate effort?
If we have to merge, we can do that. So we should be okay, honestly. let's hope that we have that problem.
Yeah.
And if we run into that problem, then we'll try to solve it. But I think that even if somebody was working on, let's say, so here is my, I use Visual Studio to update this markdown file. If there were multiple people working on this PO section and they added different things, when we go to merge it, we can merge both ideas together and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that this is a living, working document. We haven't published it anywhere. I've kept it very, very quiet. So pretty much we're the only ones seeing it right now. And I feel like we have to do that until we get at least phase 1, 2, and 3 at, 75%. And then we can start pushing it out. And social networking it, and the CD Foundation will help. And I think I've spoken to some of the women at the that do social networking for OpenSSF. They're super excited that we're doing this because it's getting them an opportunity to do some what they would call DevRel around their tools. So, but let's not tell anybody about it just yet. Especially considering I know how I put it together. It wasn't very scientific.
I want to ask, like, can I propose me trying to work on the build and deploy first? So is there anyone wanting to work on that part too?
100%, go for it.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because the more somebody else does the work, then when we go to sit down as a team and before the Tuesday meeting, we'll make sure that any merges or any pull requests, we've got them reviewed and get them updated. Then all we're doing is sitting down and we're looking at the actual, I'm sorry, I have so many tabs up here. It's kind of stupid. This actual document, right? To review it. And we certainly could have somebody, when we're reviewing it, pull up the Visual Studio and make the corrections as we are working on it so that we can work on it together.
Okay.
But nobody right now, I don't want anybody to be hesitant to updating this material. It would be great if all of us were super comfortable with it. So why don't we plan next week? If everybody could do their best to follow this section. This getting started section. It should help you go through I can't remember the person's name who did this work. Is somebody on the call that did this work?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay. Yes. Who is that?
Eduardo. Yeah, should be
Oh, that's
working.
right. Yes. So Eduardo, would you be willing next week, in 2 weeks, to take us all through the steps so that we're all able to make updates to the doc?
Yeah, you mean some little demo of how to run the
I don't
things?
even want to do a demo. I want you to go through it, but I want everybody to be doing it on their own, not just watching, so that, if they're having trouble getting the Docker file up, that we're there to say, okay, go here. So let's just make it like a workshop.
Yeah. Okay.
Where are we right here? Where is
And
this?
in the meantime, what I would suggest everybody do is not worry about reading the secure software development framework. Instead, worry about getting your local environment set up so that you can update the docs. That's probably a better way to spend your time. Because Eduardo did a really nice job of cleaning up the mess I had in there. And he's got it out now on a Docker file, so it shouldn't be terribly difficult. She's got everything. The steps are pretty clean.
Tracy, where is this text that you're showing us? Sorry, I didn't see. What's the top of the? Okay, that's
under join our team. Go to join our team.
Got it.
And then scroll down and it'll have a getting started section.
So I guess a question I have, maybe I missed it, is when we move into work sessions, I hear us simultaneously talking about updating the pages as well as building an inventory and doing the work. So we're going to do them simultaneously?
Okay, so the term simultaneous is a little bit deceiving.
Yes, fair.
You will update your own sections of the document, When the pull request happens, it'll show the need for the merge. And it'll show the different sections. And if there is the case where two people updated the same thing, the person who's doing the review is going to have to make the decision, and then we'll read through the doc and discuss it later. But yes, it will be simultaneous, but because we're using Git, I'm assuming that unless everybody does the first task, and everybody does the second task, and everybody does the third task, all at the same time, which I just don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, we'll worry about it in merge, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, and I think
So
more I meant, you answered my question, Tracy, but I think one option would be we just have a big offline Google Doc and we all work within there. We agree on sections and then we publish them. Or I think what you're saying, we're going to treat the site as a live doc. So we will all just implement our changes directly in there, then review and reconcile. So I think you answered the question. We're going to treat it as a live doc.
It's a live doc, and the reason why we wouldn't want to do it the other way is because it ends up being a massive doc with a bunch of comments that one person is given the task of trying to keep cleaned up, and then they have to try to bring it into Markdown, as opposed to just working in and using the tools to track the changes and the updates and the comments. We just need to use Git to do that. It'll be too hard to do it with Google, just a doc. And then we actually have something we can deliver.
Yep, makes sense.
I want to make another suggestion. Like, could we have a doc on the GitHub site that's just a markdown that's not part of the website, but we can keep track of who's doing like what task. So we can put a name there just to have a rough idea. So we don't have to because like I'm kind of worried like using Git, like there might be some merge conflicts we have to deal with. That's quite tricky if you're not like familiar with Git. So that's a concern I have.
I think that we can certainly do that, but I think that there's plenty of us here that can manage the merge conflicts.
Okay.
For now, let's just see if that's a problem before we try to solve it.
Okay. Sure.
Let's just get everybody where they're comfortable going through and taking on a section and saying, okay, I'm working on build and deploy. I'm going to start mapping, this is completely different from this, right? This starts with the secure software development framework. It discusses what it is, and then it starts going through tasks. This one just says, this is the open source. This is just a laundry list right now. But we can add to it where it fits into the secure software development framework. So it's a good start. We just need to add where it goes. Where does SBOM tools and attestation goes? That might be stuff that we're talking about in code and pre-build. Some of it might have to go in post-deployment.
Yeah, I see. Okay, gotcha.
So we can, and I just don't believe that we're all going to jump on this all at once. I just don't think we will. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think if people get pull requests up quickly, like the same day you work on it, and then if people just check for active pull requests before you dive in, that'll probably get rid of most of the.
Yeah.
Do a sync, do a sync before you get started, so your local repo is up to date, and I think that will be super helpful. And I will make a commitment to start watching the Git repo on a daily basis.
Or could we have a work in progress pull requests? That's a good idea.
What do you mean by that?
Like if it's halfway done, you can mark them as work in progress and
as draft too, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can tell who is doing what and what's the status.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize that this isn't published anywhere. I know it's out there if somebody stumbled across it, but it's not published. So, we can mess it up and fix it and, work on it for some time without, making it before anybody sees it. So don't be afraid of breaking something or writing something wrong or doing anything like that. Just be brave and go out there and start putting start working on the lists. That's the best thing I could suggest to you. And the other thing that we can do, and if you would like me to, I could work on this, is so, for example, in code and pre-build, we have this whole section that's secure software development framework. And we have a section that is compliance goals and introduction. I can, underneath each of these chapters, I can break this out into different markdowns. So the secure software development framework would have its own page, own document. And when I say that, if you look in here, here's how this is. Oh, I'm not showing my screen. Oh, yes, I am. So here's how this is done right now. Phase 1 has one index.md, and that is all the phase 1, and that's everything in one document. So I could take this out and I could break it into smaller chapters so that it makes we're not all updating the same document.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I will do that then. I will get working on that. I'll try to get it done sometime by Friday. But if you want to make updates to it in the meantime, please do, because when I go to make the updates, I'll pull down the most recent and break it apart at that point. So don't worry if you know, it is going to break it to some extent, but I'll be able to clean it up and fix it. So don't worry, if you go ahead and contribute if you want to contribute before I get it broken up. Then I can do it even farther. I can say, here's the secure software development framework. This would be one file. And then we could have a section that's the protect the organization. And then we'd have another one for protect the software and another one for produce well secured software. So I can break it up even farther if the concern for merge requests or merges is going to be an issue. Do you guys want me to take it to that level?
Sounds like it'll work though. It's a good idea.
Okay, so it'll be smaller documents. When it gets rendered, it's going to look the same, right? It's just going to have paragraphs in here. So if it's going to look something like this. So this is a similar one. So notice we have user guides on the top. We have the Artilius contributor guide. I'll just go to the bigger one, the user guide. Under the user guide, I have why use Artilius, the free sign up, the installation and support. So it would kind of look like that. We'd have phase 1, code and pre-build. Under that, we'd have the secure software development framework. Under that, we would have the PO, the PW, the PV. So that breaks it up into smaller chunks so that it makes a better chat contents, right? It gives us a better guideline for what's in there. And it does make it easier for us to work on it individually.
Yeah, it makes it more modular too. Yeah.
Okay, I will work on that and I will send an email out and I will update the Slack channel when it's done.
Sounds good.
Righty.
I got a
I
question.
might be able to get that done soon.
Yeah, I don't go away. Oh, I just want to ask a question about layout currently, because like right now we have that right hand side bar which we may not need eventually. It's like, do you want to keep it? Do you guys want to? It's like for the website, for if you go back to where you were showing us, because like yeah, there's some added buttons. I think it's like, do you want to move them or do you want to keep them there? Because like right now it's occupying some space on the right hand side.
Where are the added buttons? Where are you talking about?
So it's like if you go back to the documentation part for the like go back one page. Wait here. View page source. Add this page. Create chart page like this buttons. Do we need this on the right hand side?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I was hoping that this could be a way for people to use it. I haven't played on it yet to see if it actually works. But this would be a way, I mean, that was how the best practices were set up. And because I just brought it over, it does go to our page, but I don't think it's set up correctly. So it's another one, if somebody wants to take it on or we take it out.
I can put it at the bottom instead. So if like or else I can just comment it out for now. So I can make a progress for this.
That would be good.
Yeah, because
Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So edit this page. So does it take you to the right place to edit the page? It does. It kind of is working, right?
Yeah, because like we have that in Jenkins too, so it may be helpful like if we have something in the footer, but not like up top though.
Okay, yeah, let's put it at the bottom of the page. And as you look at it, if you can see if it's working correctly. Because it would be nice if, because I think that if we had this, it would keep us from having to have everybody have their own local Hugo server running.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And it makes it a lot easier for people to work on.
Yeah, I can try to see if I can move those to the footer. So I'll try to give it a shot like over the next 2 days.
Okay, great.
Okay, cool.
So create a child page. That would probably be what I need to do. I'm going to go create a bunch of child pages right now when I get done with this. All right, folks, I have to jump because I have another call that's coming up here. Thank you all so much. It was a great conversation today. I'm glad we got the why, and I'm glad we got some of these other issues worked out. I'm looking forward to everybody starting to write and contribute. And next time we will have a real live working session where we're all going to become experts in these frameworks.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.